Okay, so let's begin. All right. So we're going to begin on page 118. 118. Now, y'all should note that in the previous video, I think it's number 3, Leo number 3, some explosive stuff in there. So go back and watch that video before you, if you haven't seen number 3, go back and watch number 3 about the 3 or 4 pieces of evidence that JC is not the Messiah expected by the Jews. Okay, so y'all go back and check that out, because I'm not going to review it here, but what I can do is say this. That there are 4 pieces of evidence. They're very convincing pieces of evidence. Y'all should go back and watch them. Okay? Go back and watch them. One has to do with whether he was from the tribe of Judah or not. And the other piece of evidence has to do with, did he accomplish any or all of the prophecies related to what the Messiah would do, right? Did he accomplish anything? Or for that matter, was he even born in the place that he was said to be born in? So these types of issues, okay? So it's not religious, not doctrinal, okay? It is the facts, the evidence. So y'all go check that out. So let's start. Okay, now we picked up last time, we were talking about a mystery. Okay, so there's a mystery where we left off at JC. Well, I guess I kind of have to tell you in order to move forward. So let me just say this. So JC is not the Messiah, clearly not the Messiah spoken of in the book of Mark, right? Based upon the pieces of evidence that I just mentioned, JC is not the Messiah that was expected by the Jews. However, he is the Christian Christ. All right. So there was some editing done to fit him in to the role of a Jewish Messiah per Isaiah, right? Per Micah, etc. So remember Isaiah, the suffering servant, chapter 52 and 53 of Isaiah, and Micah chapter 5 verse 2, which basically tells you that the Messiah was not born, well, Christ rather, JC the Christ figure is not born where Micah prophesied he would be born. All of that is to say this: there's a huge contradiction, a huge problem that has to be solved. Okay? How is it that JC doesn't fulfill any of the prophetic roles? And this is where we left off for. Paul settles the matter like this. It's a mystery. They run the same play with the Trinity, right? Anything that can't be explained that's contradicted, they say, okay, well, it's a mystery. So it's an acknowledgement that it's a contradiction. I hope everyone understands that. They acknowledge that it's a contradiction. However, they take the sting out of the contradiction by saying it's a mystery. Okay? And here's what that mystery is according to the Apostle John. From Colossians 11, 26 and 27. The mystery, Paul is saying, and the author of this book, the Reverend Bill Darrell-El, is agreeing with Paul that JC doesn't fit the prophetic role. In other words, those prophecies never came true in JC's lifetime. JC never fulfilled those prophecies. So the author and the Apostle Paul is saying, well, yeah, that's true. We acknowledge that. But the reason is, it's because it's a mystery. Okay, it's a mystery. And so here's how the mystery goes. But let me say this. If it is a mystery, how can this author or the Apostle Paul, which in my opinion he never lived, or at least on the earth, the Apostle Paul never lived in the form of a man. But let's say if he did, how can Paul know that the mystery is actually these evidences, those 3 or 4 pieces of evidence that we talked about? If it's a mystery, how can he know? Who told him the answer of the mystery? And then where's the evidence of who told him? Or is it going to be just something, oh, well, God told me? Which is ridiculous on its face, right? That requires you to have to believe. So again, Christ never fulfilled the role of the Jewish Messiah. All right? Never fulfilled. Now, remember, I told you all that in the book of the law, Moses never talked about some Messiah coming and that he would bring salvation to the House of Yasharala. That's a religious concept, okay? The return or the blessings. This place is very different. I mean, oh man. Anyway, so the return to the blessings for the House of Yasharala is in Deuteronomy chapter 30, which is simply follow the Most High's instructions, which are at their essence natural law, which are natural law. That's how to return. That's how to get your land back. That's everything. This concept of a Messiah coming, and he's going to destroy everybody on earth. And he's going to make the whole world into a paradise, a kingdom, and he's going to have 144,000 people ruling with it. Whatever your doctrine is, none of that is in the book of Moses. Okay, so that's religion. Be that as it may, the Christ figure never fulfilled those prophecies, right? He never fulfilled those prophecies. And so how is this that he can be the Christ but not have filled those prophecies? That is the mystery. That is the mystery. How is it that JC can be the expected Messiah, the Christ in Greek, but yet he didn't fulfill not even one prophecy? Okay? Colossians chapter 1, verse 26 and 27 says, well, yeah, that's true, but it's a mystery. Okay? So here's how it reads. The mystery that has been kept hidden for ages and generations, but is now disclosed to the saints. Y'all see that? So if it was hidden for ages and generations, how is it that Paul knows? How is it that this author knows? How is it that anybody knows? Right? It's just speculation, and speculations are nothing but guesses. Okay? It's nothing but a guess. That's what it is. To them, capital G-O-D has chosen to make known among the Gentiles, not amongst the House of Yasharala, amongst the Gentiles, the glorious riches of this mystery. So here we have, again, very vague, ambiguous language. This is meant to do what? Ignite or spark your imagination. The glorious riches. What does that mean? What are the glorious riches? See, now the reader has to then go and say, okay, I think the glorious riches are. All right? But what do they want you to think? They want you to think that these glorious riches are the excuse for the Christ figure never having been born, where he was said that he would be born in prophecy, Micah chapter 5, verse 2. Why wasn't he born there? Well, it's a mystery. You guys get it? Next. Why didn't the Christ figure fulfill any of the expected prophecies. He didn't fill the role at all, none. Why is it? Well, that's a mystery. You guys see it? It's a mystery. It's the glorious riches, or at least you need to imagine that that's the definition of glorious riches. Vague, ambiguous language meant to activate your imagination so that you can do yourself. So that you can do what? So that you can convince yourself that this propaganda is true. Okay? Which is Christ in you. So y'all see that? Y'all see that? Christ is in you, but he's in you, but now he's not a literal man. Well, how can he be a literal man, but yet a literal man be in you? It doesn't work, right? So is he a literal man, or is it a concept, a state of mind, a condition? Y'all see what I'm saying? You cannot have it both ways. Paul and the author. It cannot be he's a literal man, but yet at the same time, it's a condition or a state of mind called Christ. Okay, scholars?
Yeah.
To them, capital G-O-D has chosen to make known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Vague, ambiguous language, open to mean whatever somebody says it means. And the people who he tells, they're being willing or agreeable to accept that meaning. Y'all see that? That's Colossians chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. But what else does he say here that's interesting? To them, the capital G-O-D has chosen to make known. So now there's some exclusivity. So now this is cultish behavior. Do y'all see it? This is cultish behavior. Well, it's just you and a few others who are actually going to understand and get this, because the deity only told you and a couple other people, right? This is the tactics of a cult, exclusivity. So it's us against the world. Y'all see that? And they're not going to understand you. Why? Because the mystery was not told to them. Y'all see it? See it? Okay, let's continue. This section of the gospel attempts to teach that the Messiahship, and it is indeed a Messiahship, okay, or rather an office, okay, that can be held by many people in different times. That Messiahship is not embodied in one individual. Okay, so the author is telling us that the Gospel of Mark presents Messiah as an office or a status. Okay, it is not a person who ever lived. Okay, as the Messiahship is not embodied in one individual. Historical character. Now the author just said JC the Christ figure never lived. That's what he just said. He is a fictitious character. But that it is a status which all potentially share. So scholars, do you see it? It's an admission that JC never lived. Okay, so that means if JC never lived, that means he's never going to come back. And if he's never going to come back, that means that the Great Tribulation, Armageddon, and what he's supposed to do to Esau and to the nations, none of that is going to happen. As it has not happened yet. Does everyone see that? It's all, as we used to say when I was younger, malarkey. All malarkey. This is black tea with lemon. All right. So all of that is fantasy. Okay? It's all fantasy. Let's continue. To be the Messiah. Now remember, according to the according to Mark, the book of Mark, this is talking about an office or a status. To be the Messiah, the Christ, to be agents of transformation in the world, we have to become fully persuaded of our relationship with the deity. That's a capital G-O-D. So you should know that capital G-O-D is Zeus, Apollo, the Tetragrammaton, and JC. And fully committed to the welfare of others who are equal sharers in divine sonship and daughtership. Now this is completely different from what we were told in the book of Moses. Moses told us, or Moses got the word. Okay, the word was to Moses that we need to follow the Most High's instructions. We need to keep his commandments. The commandments are natural law. Period. The commandments are natural law. We need to follow natural law, and then we need to do what? That's it. Not know. However, Christianity is telling you something completely different that you don't see in the book of Moses, which is what I just read. You need to be fully aware of your relationship with God, fully committed to the welfare of others. Wait, what does that mean, the welfare of others? That's very broad and ambiguous again. Okay? Who are equal sharers in divine sonship and daughtership. What does that mean? I need to be completely aware of my relationship with the deity and be fully committed to the welfare of others who are my equal in divinity. That has absolutely nothing to do with following natural law, following the Most High's commandments. So do you see the difference here? Of course there's going to be a different status, right? If you don't follow natural law, you're going to have major problems in your life. Major problems. So, in summary, Christianity is persuading people. Some people don't have to be persuaded because this is all they know from birth. They're indoctrinated into believing that they need to be first concerned with their relationship with the deity and then caring for, whatever the welfare means, caring for other people. That has absolutely nothing to do with natural law. That's outside of the contract. And so therefore, when you do that, when you're behaving like that, you're going to get the consequences of not following natural law. Right? What do we call these? They're called the curses, the punishments, the escheating, the attainders, the bills of attainders. Right? You're going to get the black codes. Okay? You won't be able to inherit or give an inheritance. Simple, right? Your civil status will be dead. You'll be under the authority of the Dogon, the Raphaim, or the Raphaim. Everybody got that? You will become a subject or y'all got it? Chattel, you are conquered. But anyway, let's continue. Who do you say I am? Is not a question asked once and for all by JC to Peter. So JC asks Peter, who do you say I am? The author is saying, and this occurs all the time amongst the religious groups and people. JC was talking to Peter, literally. But the religionists, to create a doctrine, they'll say that no, JC was talking to everybody. Right? They'll say he was talking, and I used to believe this kind of ridiculous stuff too. It made sense. At that time, it made sense. But no, he's not talking to everybody. He was talking to Peter. Oh, but you pull out the principle. No, you don't. No, you don't. You look at what was said to Peter in that context, and you make sense of it. Period. He was not talking to me, and he was not talking to you. Who do you say that I am? Is it not a question asked once and for all by Jesus to Peter? Okay, so the author said it is not that. Here's what it is. It is the question that every one of us must ask ourselves at some time or another. Do y'all know what this is called? This is called reading into something. Okay, this is somebody's opinion. You can get 8 billion, 9 billion other people who can say that's going to mean something completely different. And none of them have a basis for it, other than it being their opinion. They may throw doctrine at you, but as it stands, what it says on the page is exactly what it says on the page. Anything other than that is an opinion, a teaching, a doctrine. Okay? It is the question that all of us must ask ourselves at some time or another. And we must keep reminding ourselves of the correct answer. Okay, so who is the Christ? I'm the Christ within. This is what the author, that's the correct answer. The Christ is within. So who is the Christ? I'm the Christ within. And that person over there and all the other people are Christ also, right? Because Christ is within. The kingdom of God is within. This is what the author is talking about. Again, an admission that JC, the Christ figure, is not the expected Messiah that the Jewish people were looking for. Now remember, I'm talking religion, not the bloodline people, not the nation. Okay? It's a difference. The fourth gospel has no account of JC's question to Peter. So the fourth gospel, again, they leave out that question that JC asked Peter. But it explores the theme of identity even more comprehensively than the synoptics. JC uses the expression, note this y'all, I am, on a number of occasions. Quote, I am the bread of life. Okay? This is coming from the fourth gospel, chapter 6, verse 48. I am the good shepherd. That's chapter 10, 14. I am the resurrection and the life. That's chapter 11, verse 25. And in conversation with the Jews, he makes the astonishing claim, quote, before Abraham was, I am, end quote. This is not just a claim of pre-existence. It's nothing short of a claim to identity with capital G-O-D. So in other words, this is a claim that the Tetragrammaton and JC are the same person. Okay, so Trinity. Who in the book of Exodus had revealed himself to Moses as, quote, I am who I am, end quote. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. Most of Christendom interprets this to mean that JC alone has this oneness with the deity, capital G-O-D, a position which undoubtedly hinders all genuine dialogue with non-Christian faiths. Who cares, right? Who cares? But this is not the only possible interpretation, all right? For Gnostics, and for all who accept the perennial philosophy in one or other of its guises, quote, I am refers to the awareness of identity with capital G-O-D, which can be experienced by all who discover Christ within. So y'all got that? So if you buy into I am the Christ, if that's what you believe, right? The kingdom of God is in me, then you are the great I am. Everybody got that? You are the great I am. That's the alternative interpretation, all right? So let's continue. On such an interpretation, quote, the Christ, unquote, is not a single historical figure. Everybody got that? Christ within, the kingdom is within, you're your own personal savior. That means the JC the Christ figure never lived in the form of a man on this planet. All right? On such an interpretation, quote, Christ, end quote, is not a single historical figure, but the eternal principle of mystical unity. Wow, what vague and ambiguous terms. Darrell-El says, hit that button. Yeah, y'all hit that like button. You know what's strange, y'all? The number of viewers and the number of likes when I do the live stream is usually 0, 1, 2, or 3, but when I go check my analytics, it's always higher. Always higher. I don't know if they do that to discourage content producers, you know, like to say, oh, nobody's watching. But when I check my analytics, it's always higher. Always. Okay. When I'm talking about immediately after the video, when I check it, there's always more viewers. Okay, but anyway, let's continue. On such an interpretation. Oh, by the way, yeah, I checked my email and I saw that, and I'm gonna post it. Okay, so look for it maybe within the next 12, 24 hours, Darrell-El. Good to see you here too, bro. All right. On such an interpretation, quote, the Christ, end quote, is not a single historical figure, but the eternal principle of mystical unity, mysterious unity, with the divine, which, all right, with the divine, which says Thomas Hickey has been discovered and proclaimed, quote, by saints and sages, poets and wise people throughout history, and is recorded in the sacred books, mythologies, and literature of all cultures. This is from Hickey, page 33. So I hope everyone is seeing what's being said here. Those evidences on page 100, those pieces of evidence on page, I believe it's 117. Yeah, 117. Okay? Those are so profound that the scholars have to acquiesce. Based upon those evidences, the scholars have to acquiesce and say, well, yeah, these things, what Mark is saying is so. Christ never fulfilled the prophecies, right? This is at least in the book of Mark, which was the first gospel. And just why is it that he's the Messiah anyway, right? It could have been Joe or Bob or David or Eddie, Timmy. It could have been anybody. They could have just got him and said, hey, you're the Christ. And everybody would have said, well, how? What's the answer? It's a mystery. That's how. It's a mystery. Okay? It's a mystery. Let me go back so I can make my point. Hold on, I gotta find where I am. Oh, okay, all right. Give me 1 second. Here we are. So I'm dealing right now, what I have on my mind is this eternal, what is the phrase that the mystical unity rather, eternal principle of mystical unity. Somebody explain to me, what does that mean? What is the eternal principle of mystical unity? You see how these broad, ambiguous terms that you're left up to interpret, okay? And it gives the people who make doctrine, it gives the leaders, the religious leaders, and even scholars something to speculate on, something to guess at, and then offer it up to you on their menu as a doctrine and say, here, you take this. And if you don't believe it, we're going to ostracize you. If you don't believe it, we're going to kick you out. Okay, you need to buy our books and learn all of this doctrine, and this is what it means. Like, get out there on the street. But this is what you need to believe in order to accept that JC the Christ figure was a physical man who walked the earth. DrYasapa writes, make them look wise, making you the fool. Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. Okay? Totally agree. So let's continue. It can be found in the Hindu Upanishads, which came into existence hundreds of years before the Christian era. In the Chandogya Upanishad, the seeker Sevteketu is informed by his father about the nature of self. So see, scholars, this is what I was telling you about. Christianity is using mind sciences. Today we call these mind sciences the science of success, or success and achievement literature, right? Self. You'll find the science of self. I'm talking science, not religion. Okay? Now, y'all do know that the sciences were remixed into religion in the form of religious mythology. Okay? They're hidden, remixed, and presented as religious mythology when in fact they are sciences. But the mythology was overlaid over it. Okay? To keep you away from it, number one, but also to hide it in plain sight. Okay? Things hidden in plain sight. So let's continue. He, the one, thought to himself, let me be many, let me grow forth. Thus, out of himself, he projected the universe. And having projected out of himself the universe, he entered into every being. Okay, so this is assuming, if y'all read this carefully, well, let me go back. He projected. What is the definition of projected? See, if you assume you understand the definition of projected, you've just participated in what? In your own transportation, narrative transportation. You don't know the meaning here of projected. You don't know the meaning of many. Let me be many. What does he mean? Many what? Let me be many what? Many planets, many stars, many specks of dust, many men, many women, many. What does he mean? Let me be many. Let me grow forth. What does grow forth mean? Thus, out of himself. So I'd like to know the meaning of himself. He projected. What does projected mean? He projected the universe. So the universe was in himself. Now you know the universe is physical, right? It's physical. So let me be many. Is this something, this me? First of all, me says what? Because it's me, it has an identity. You guys agree, scholars? Do you agree? If it's me, that means it has an identity. So who is me? Let me be many. Who is me? Is this physical? Is it invisible? If it's invisible, do the known laws of physics apply to it? Y'all see what I'm saying? Let me be many, let me grow forth. Thus out of himself he projected the universe. Well, what's the universe here? What's the meaning of the universe here? Don't assume you know the meaning of these terms. Do not assume you know the meaning of these terms. Because if you do, you will be brainwashed. You will be tricked. And having projected out of himself, see, the mental image that you're getting is that a man projecting out from his chest or from his brain, right? But that may not be what that means, because he's not even a fleshly man. Or if he is, how do you know he's a fleshly man? Okay, what is his substance? And having projected out of himself, that's masculine, the universe, notice this, he entered into every being. He entered into every being. So when were these beings created? Were they created all at the same time? Is the definition of all living species, etc., included in universe? When it says, thus out of himself he projected the universe. Darrell-El writes, psych, fool your mind. Yes. Yes. Do y'all see what's happening here? Everybody see what's happening here? Let's continue. So, having projected out of himself the universe, he entered into every being. So how is it that if he projected out of himself, now I'm just asking questions, he projected out of himself, how is he not already in every being? Why did he need to enter every being? If they all came from him, they should be him, right? So what does this language mean? What do these terms mean? All that is has itself in him alone. All that is has its self in him alone. What does this mean? See, this is your opportunity to imagine what it means, to philosophize what it means, and for you to gain or reach agreement with yourself about what it means. And you think that that's what they mean, and so now you join them or you start following them and they gain influence over you. Why? Because you propagandized yourself. All things, he is the subtle essence. Who is he? He is the truth, and that, Sevteka, that art thou. Okay, so I get it now. That art thou means I am. This comes from the Prabhavananada, pages 68 and 69. Darrell-El writes, dusk is everything you can't get rid of. Dusk doom. Yeah. So that art thou, I guess the author's point is an equivalent phrase of I am. That art thou is an equivalent statement to I am. Okay? And he's making this because Christ said I am so many times in the other Gospels, right? That's his point. Tet Vam Asi, quote, that art thou, end quote, expresses the identity of the self with Brahman. All right? So when you hear people say, and I say this quite a bit too, when you hear people say that much of the Jeremiah 8, verse 8 occurrences are taking right up out of Hindu religion. Okay? And also note that English names are injected, and those names are related to Hindu deities. Y'all got that? So let's continue. Tat Vam Asi, quote, the art, that art thou, expresses the identity of the self with Brahman, being itself the source of existence. Darrell-El writes, that is a movie reference to the movie Dune Spice. Okay? So here we see an example, so you guys can follow up on that, all right? So references that the New Testament, not just the New Testament, Old Testament too, have content that comes from the Hindi spiritual system. Okay, we just saw an example of one of them. And I gave y'all a really good piece of information about English names, okay, and the Hindi names. Y'all can follow up on that. The Gnostic Gospel of Thomas is firmly in this mystical tradition. So we ask the question, why, right? Teaching that, quote, we come from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own record, end quote, on its own accord, end quote. Okay, so this is coming from Barnstone, page 303. Now, actually, that is a fact. That is a fact, right? Y'all know that particles are waves. Waves are light. Period. All right? So particles and waves are the same thing. So these waves are said to what? Become material or condense when consciousness or when you put your attention to them. So when you give a wave attention, now it becomes a particle. That's all it's saying. So these waves are light. That's it. Okay? So we find that reference in the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas. That's a scientific fact. Okay? Later in the same document we read, quote, split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift up the stone and you will find me there. I.e., there is nowhere that the Christ is not. So, if the Christ is saying that he is light or it is light, or as in the Hindi religion, where it says that the projection out of himself came everything, okay, if that's the case, well, that's true, right? Because all things are made of energy. The energy are waves, okay? So let's continue. Later in that same document, we read, quote, split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift up the stone and you will find me there. I.e., there is nowhere that the Christ is not. The similarity between such ideas and Eastern mystical philosophy can clearly be seen and may give us a clue as to why the name of Thomas, who was traditionally considered to be the apostle to India, came to be associated with this gospel. All right, I think that's clear. Okay, so in the Gospel of Thomas, you see Hindi spiritual system teachings. All right. Let me check the time. So I hope y'all are getting something out of this. All right, so let's continue. I missed a footnote. So there's a footnote somewhere. I missed it, so I'm going to read it. John's Gospel gives an account of another occasion on which J.C. claims identity with the deity, capital G-O-D, Darrell-El, I'm going to read that in a second, Darrell-El. John's Gospel gives an account of another occasion in which J.C. claims identity with capital G-O-D, okay, so reference to Trinity, by declaring, quote, I and the Father are one. That's John 10, verse 30. When accused of blasphemy by the Jews, he quotes in his own defense Psalms 82. Y'all know what Psalms 82 is, right? Here it is. Psalms 82:6, quote, I have said you are gods, end quote, which is a clear statement of divine potential within all human beings. No, the author is not correct. It is not a clear statement of divine potential. It is a statement that clearly says man and woman, Genesis chapter 2, men and women are the gods. In other words, we are the ones who have the sovereign right to create law, to enforce law, right? And to do what? Act in the capacity of what? To interpret law. The executive, judicial, and legislative branches of what? Of government, Y'all see it? We're the rightful heirs. Genesis chapter 2. Sovereign. This is what it's meant. You are the substance, more. You are the substance and subject matter of the law. Substance and subject matter of the law. We are the gods. Now, we are also born or endowed with the creative faculty, where whatever we want, whatever we put our mind to, we can produce this and make it our reality. That's whatever material thing, whatever condition of the mind, condition of the emotions, right? Or lifestyle. Okay, so this is what is meant by we are the gods. Yes. The hybrids are not. They are subjects. Okay, they are subjects. So let's continue. Let me try to get this comment in. All right, okay, so Darrell-El writes, in Egyptian, none is actually spelled noun. Noun in grammar is matter, and everything is made up of water. Yes. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? The machine, BR writes, amazing content. Thank you so much. Thank you. But now, y'all remember, this is not my original work. I'm getting this from the Gospels, from the Gospel and the Zodiac, the Secret Truth of J.C., okay, by the Reverend Bill Darlison. So I'm doing reading and interpreting. Okay, so let's continue. This essentially Gnostic viewpoint has been expressed in more recent times by ex-Dominican priest Matthew Fox. So, students, this is an admission. This is an admission that the Gospels are a hodgepodge taken from many systems. Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, the Egyptian spiritual system. And there's one, the Persian, well, that's Zoroastrianism. There's one more, it'll come to my mind later. But it's a hodgepodge. It's mind science, success and achievement literature. That's what it is. Okay, let's continue. This essentially Gnostic viewpoint has been expressed in more recent times by ex-Dominican priest Matthew Fox in terms which no doubt unwittingly reflect the Leoninian themes of this section of Mark's Gospel. Quote, quote, what good is it for me if I am a king and do not know that I am a king? Doesn't that sound familiar, y'all? What good is it for me if I am a king and do not know I am a king? What good is it for me if I don't know? Wait. What good is it for me if I am the sovereign, but I don't know I'm the sovereign? What good is it for me if I am God? If I don't know I'm God? Psalms 82:6. What good is it for me if I am the rightful heir for all land, property, resources, and energy on the planet if I don't know that I'm the rightful heir? And we can take this on and on and on and on. What good is it? Right? That's why you have to do what? You have to come and learn who you are. And you must learn what? The law. The law are the lectures of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. And then what are these lectures? It's natural law. And also culture and heritage, right? That's who you are. You are who your ancient forefathers are. With no doubt and no contradictions, period. If you abandon that, you're through out here. Okay? You become a stateless person under the authority of the Christian corporations. Okay, now let's continue. Ask Mr. Eckhart, the name quote Christ means the anointed one. So who anointed him? If you've been paying attention to this presentation, he never fulfilled the role of the Messiah. None of the prophecies were fulfilled. So the Most High did not anoint him. So who anointed him? The people, the Dogon, or the Raphaim? It wasn't the Most High. Why? Because the prophecies weren't fulfilled. When you look at it from the religious or Jewish aspect of it, when you look at it from the nationality aspect, there's no reference to a Messiah and this said kingdom. Okay, so it has nothing to do with that. There's only one option left: the people or the Dogon and Raphael. Who anointed him? Did y'all ever think about that? Let's continue. The name Christ means the anointed one. All of us are anointed ones. We are all royal persons, creative, godly, divine, persons of beauty and grace. We are all cosmic Christs. Quote, other Christs, end quote. But what good is this if we do not know it? Everyone is a son, S-U-N, of capital G-O-D. Y'all got that? That's actually written here. The author wrote that here. Now y'all don't be offended if this doesn't jive with your religious doctrine. Don't be offended. This is not religion at all. Do y'all see S-U-N, son? Okay, so let's continue. That's my spot. Okay. But what good is this if we do not know it? Everyone is a S-U-N of capital God, as well as a son, son or daughter of capital God. Do y'all got that? Y'all got that? He says everyone is a son, son of capital God, and everyone is a son, son or daughter of capital God. But very few believe it or know it. Note the distinction he made, the astrological distinction, having reference to what? The astrological distinction having reference to you're your own Savior. You are the Christ, the higher self and the lower self. You're the Christ and you're Darth Vader from Star Wars. You're the Christ, the higher self, and you are the devil, evil with a D from darkness on it. Okay, lower self, you're evil, wicked, you operate in darkness. So therefore you are evil plus the D, you're a devil. Since this is a summer solstice, the sun at its highest point in the northern sky, in the Tropic of Cancer, and this is the sun at its lowest point in the southern part of orbit or the southern part of the sky. This is the Tropic of Capricorn. Y'all remember that? I'm gonna read that in a second, Darrell-El. So here you have the Christ, the higher self, at the extreme opposite end of the line here where we find what? The winter solstice. So summer solstice, the Christ, winter solstice, Satan the devil. Why Satan? Because it's at the opposite end of the same line, opposite opposer. Y'all got that? Satan the devil, Darth Vader, evil, wicked, SOB. Okay? Christ figure, higher self. All right? Okay, so let's see. Darrell-El writes, do you have feminine constellations? Yes. Virgo is supposed to be a woman. Aquarius, in my opinion, is a woman. Okay, water bearer. But Aquarius is presented rather in astrology either as a man or androgynous. You can't tell whether it's man or woman, and there's a reason why they do that, because they don't want you to know that it's a woman. You also see these feminine constellations in the picture of the Lord's evening meal. Darrell comments, the comments before that one. Okay. Why, hold on, let me see. Give me a second. Let me try to pull it up. All right. So give me 1 second. Mithras, Darrell-El writes Mithras. Okay, why didn't he mention daughters when he spoke of son, S-U-N, but did include when he said son, S-O-N? I don't know if I'm understanding what you're saying right, but S-O-N, son, would be a physical woman. Why didn't he speak of son? I'm not sure if I answered your question. Let me try to pull it up again. It fades off. When I open it up, it only stays a few seconds and then it fades off. Why didn't he mention daughters when he spoke of the S-U-N, son? Daughters as in constellations? But he did include when he said S-O-N, son. Well, the only thing I can think of is, I don't know if I'm answering your question or even addressing your question, but the constellations are a belt that surrounds the orbit of the sun, S-U-N, sun. So the sun actually never physically enters into a constellation. The sun is always away from the constellation like this. So here's a constellation. Okay, so let's say here's the sun, my fist, and this is a constellation. The sun just appears to be in the constellation, but it's not actually in the constellation. So this would be in the constellation, right? The sun never physically enters into a constellation. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but Virgo is a woman, allegedly, okay? Virgo is a woman, and so is, in my opinion, Aquarius, all right? Let's continue. But what, if you have the answer, put it in the comment section, please. Okay, so where are we at, y'all? Okay, so yes. Okay, so let me finish. Everyone is a S-U-N of capital G-O-D, as well as a son. I know the answer. I understand what you're asking right now. Okay, so when he writes S-U-N of capital G-O-D, he's not talking about a physical man or a physical woman. Right here he says everyone is a son of capital G-O-D. So this son, we can look at it in two ways. A sun, remember we discussed the other day about that sun inside of your body that produces heat. It's often related to the heart, but it produces heat that allows you to animate, stay warm, right? When the temperature rises, it produces more heat. It allows you to do and think and be and have. That power pack, let's call it that. The power pack, the battery. This is the S-U-N sun. Okay? That's the S-U-N sun, the sun of the sun, the disk in the sky. Y'all follow me? So there's the S-U-N sun, disk in the sky, and then there's the S-U-N sun or battery pack in us. Y'all got it? When I say us, I mean both men and women. So that might be why he didn't make the distinction. The other reason might be is because we are all what? Waves. We're all waves of light. Light comes from the sun. So we are all what? Sons of capital G-O-D. And you must remember too, also scholars, that the capital G-O-D is literally the sun. It's a solar deity. So we are a son of sun. We are a S-U-N of the S-U-N. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? To anthropomorphize the sun is to call the sun Apollo, Ra, Amun-Ra. To call the sun YHWH, tetragrammaton. To call the sun Isis or JC. These are solar deities. Jupiter. These are solar deities. Scholars, do you understand? So we are little SUNs, little power packs of the larger disk in the sky that's called a SUN. Is that clear, everyone? So these deities are nothing but the solar or the sun disk in the sky anthropomorphized into a physical being, a tetragrammaton, a JC the Christ figure, a Apollo, a Jupiter, etc. All of the sun deities, a Hercules. All of these are nothing but the sun personified or anthropomorphized into a physical fleshly person. I hope that answered the question. At least those are my thoughts on that right now. Maybe it'll change. Wait a minute. The next paragraph is going to get into that, it looks like. We're on page 120, scholars. Quote, son, S-O-N, and quote, S-U-N, are accidental homophones in English. But this is not their only connection. No, that is not true. They're not accidental homophones. That's not true. They're not accidental homophones. The word S-O-N, son, comes from the German or the Dutch, maybe both. Y'all can check it. I think I posted something in the community post about this. The English intentionally changed the U and made it into an O. Let me repeat that. They took the word son, S-U-N, and changed it into an O. Now, S-O-N in German or Dutch also means son. In Latin, it's S-O-L, soul, S-O-L. Okay? So it is not accidental. It was done on purpose. Son, S-O-N, and son, S-U-N, are accidental homophones in English. But this is not their only connection. Leo, the fifth sign of the zodiac, ruled by the S-U-N sun, has natural affinity with the fifth house of the horoscope, which is traditional astrology concerns offspring. Let me repeat that. Which in traditional astrology concerns offspring. It can be no accident that this Leo section of Mark's Gospel contains a number of father-son references. The voice of capital G-O-D on the Mount of Transfiguration, declaring, quote, "This is my beloved S-O-N son, listen to him," end quote. That's at Mark chapter 9, verse 7. And the incident of the man with the demon-possessed S-O-N son, which ends the section of Mark chapter 9, verse 14 through 29. Capital G-O-D makes a similar claim to the paternity of J.C. the Christ figure in the Aries section of Mark. So the Aries section of Mark, y'all, go back and read the chapter on Aries, watch the videos that I did. Okay, so the reference here is Mark chapter 1, verse 11, where capital G-O-D, the deity, says that he is the father of J.C. the Christ figure. So that's a reference in the Aries section. And Aries, note, Aries is the sign of the sun's exaltation. Why is that? Because springtime is coming. And now finally, the sun having been humiliated as it began to fall in August, September, October, November, the sun has been humiliated. There are more dark hours than light hours. Okay, and then on December 21st, 22nd, the sun is completely humiliated and killed. The sun, S-U-N, is dead for 3 days. There's no movement for 3 days on the sundial. There's no movement on 3 days on the sundial. JC is in hell for 3 days. On December 25th at midnight, JC is what? Resurrected. Okay? There's a full 1 degree movement on the sundial on December 25th. Exactly at midnight, that sundial will move a full 1 degree. Remember, it moves 1 degree every day. All right? So JC has been resurrected. There's 1 degree movement on the sundial. And now the sun begins to spring forward, to ascend upward, and now, March 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, somewhere around there, the sun, or the daylight hours, are equal to the nighttime hours. There you have justice. There's no inequality. All right? There's no inequality. 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night. Y'all got it? That's all that the author is saying here. So the Son has been exalted when he comes back to life, and he begins to ascend to spring forward, and ultimately in Aries, March 17, 18, 19, the Son brings back justice. The Son brings back justice. There's no inequality. Equal numbers of day and night. Okay, so let's continue. In Luke's genealogy of JC, this is Luke chapter 3, verse 23, JC's grandfather is said to be Heli, Heli, which is a contraction of the Greek word for son, Helios. All right, so we're going to stop right there. Islam to all the Moors. I'm DrYasapa from Zion Law School. Support my project to write the book of the law in ancient Ibaryath and then into modern English so that I can remove all of the lies, all of the deceit, all of the mythology, and so that I can show you in the text, in modern English, all of the natural law and natural law principles. I can show you the escheat and the attainders. Okay? So support the project. Buy my books from ZionLawSchool.org. Subscribe to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath class. Okay, it's an online streaming class. And show up on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can come for free. All right? Make sure you read the class description and register. You have to get in. Okay? So Islam and Shalom.